There's something different about people who grew up eating TV dinners. Maybe it's the way they accept convenience without guilt. Maybe it's how they navigate authenticity versus practicality. Maybe it's that they learned family doesn't require home-cooked meals. Because eating TV dinners didn't just mean you had working parents or liked Salisbury steak. It forged a specific type of psychological flexibility that experts are only now beginning to understand. And by the end of this video, you're going to see why this experience created some of the most adaptable people alive today. Let's start with something most people get completely wrong. Modern food culture assumes processed meals damaged children and destroyed families, but people who ate TV dinners prove that theory dead wrong. Picture yourself as a 9-year-old in 1975, coming home from school to an empty house. Your mother started working full-time last month, and you've been given new responsibilities. You open the freezer, pull out a Swanson TV dinner, the fried chicken one with the brownie, peel back the foil corner on the brownie so it doesn't burn, and slide the whole aluminum tray into the oven. 25 minutes later, you're sitting in front of the television with your divided tray on a TV table, watching the Brady Bunch, eating food you prepared yourself. Your mother will be home in an hour, and somewhere in your 9-year-old mind, you're learning that you can take care of yourself, that adults trust you with heat and time and hunger, that convenience isn't failure, it's evolution. Picture this, you're 8 years old in 1974, and you're learning to identify meals by their compartments before you can even read the box. Salisbury steak has the biggest section, fried chicken has the triangular brony, turkey has corn and mashed potatoes touching, which is somehow okay in a TV dinner but not on a regular plate. This wasn't just memorization, it was developing pattern recognition through consumption. You learn that structure contains chaos, that separation serves purpose, that presentation affects experience, that food could be engineered. Psychologists call this building categorical thinking through standardized systems, but for you, it was just knowing which dinner was which. Here's what's remarkable. You were learning industrial design principles through dinner. Someone had decided what goes where and why. You were consuming someone else's logic 3 times a week. Kids today eat fresh prepped meal kits with recipe cards and separated ingredients in little containers. They've learned convenience means choices because we decided customization was essential. But you learned convenience meant accepting what someone else decided. This wasn't passivity, it was trust. Picture this, Tuesday evening, 1977. You're 10 years old, and both your parents are working late. You're alone, hungry, and responsible. You preheat the oven, set the timer, cook your dinner, eat it, wash your tray, and do your homework. No adult supervision required. This wasn't neglect, it was learning independence through graduated responsibility. You learned that hunger is your problem to solve, that competence is expected, not optional, that being alone doesn't mean being helpless, that adults trust you because you're trustworthy. Neuroscientists call this developing internal locus of control through autonomous task completion, but for you, it was just making dinner. Here's what's remarkable. You were building executive function through real stakes. Mess this up and you don't eat. Forget to set the timer and dinner burns. Your actions had immediate, concrete consequences. Modern kids have parents who meal prep for the week, leaving labeled containers with reheating instructions and backup plans. They've learned adults manage their nutrition because we decided children can't. But you learned hunger makes you capable. This wasn't abandonment, it was agency. Picture this. You're 11 in 1978 at your friend Jennifer's house. Her mother is making dinner from scratch. Actual meatloaf, actual green beans, actual mashed potatoes. Everything takes an hour. You realize your family eats differently. You feel something you can't name yet. Shame, or maybe just difference. This wasn't trauma, it was recognizing that food signals class. You learned that convenience has stigma, that homemade means love in some households, that your normal isn't universal, that economics shapes dinner tables in visible ways. Psychologists call this developing social awareness through comparative observation, but for you, it just felt weird. Here's what's remarkable. You were learning that identical nutrition comes wrapped in different meanings. Jennifer's green beans and your green beans from the divided tray were the same vegetable telling different stories. Today's kids navigate different markers, organic versus conventional, dietary restrictions as identity, eating as political. They've learned eating is political because we decided it should be, but you learned it was economic. This wasn't shame, it was consciousness. Picture this. Every Wednesday, 1976. You're 9, and Wednesday is TV dinner night. Not because it has to be, but because it's easier. Your family sits in the living room instead of the dining room, everyone with their own tray, watching the Waltons together. This wasn't the death of family dinner, it was learning that togetherness adapts to circumstances. You learned that ritual matters more than location, that sharing space while eating matters more than sharing a casserole, that family time can be flexible and still count. Neuroscientists call this flexible schema formation around social bonding, but for you, it was just Wednesday. Here's what's remarkable. You were developing the understanding that connection doesn't require formality. Your family was together. You were eating. Those two things mattered more than how you got there. Modern families carefully stage Instagram-worthy dinner tables while scrolling their phones throughout the meal. They've learned appearance matters more than attention because we decided documentation equals experience. But you learned presence mattered most. This wasn't degradation, it was adaptation. Picture this, November 1977, year 11, and Thanksgiving dinner is completely homemade. Turkey your father spent all day roasting, stuffing your mother made from scratch, pies cooling on the counter. This is the annual proof that TV dinners are a choice, not a necessity. This wasn't hypocrisy, it was understanding that effort is reserved for meaning. You learned that not every meal deserves the same investment, that special occasions earn special treatment, that daily convenience enables periodic extravagance, that choosing your battles includes choosing which meals matter most. Neuroscientists call this values-based resource allocation, but for you, it was just Thanksgiving being different. Here's what's remarkable. You were learning sophisticated prioritization at 11. Some things deserve time, some things don't. Recognizing the difference is wisdom. Modern families either go all in on every meal or outsource everything, including holidays. They've learned consistency matters because we decided variation signals instability, but you learned strategic effort. This wasn't inconsistency, it was intelligence. Picture this, you're 38 in 2005, and you buy a TV dinner ironically at first. Remember these? But eating it brings back something unexpected. Not just taste, but the memory of self-sufficiency, of coming home to an empty house and handling it, of Wednesday nights with your family. This wasn't just nostalgia, it was recognizing that comfort food comforts for reasons beyond flavor. You learned that taste is entangled with memory, that processed foods carry emotional weight, that dismissing your past as inferior doesn't serve you, that the things that raised you deserve respect. Psychologists call this positive reframing of formative experiences, but for you, it was just remembering without shame. Here's what's remarkable. You were reclaiming something food snobs taught you to be embarrassed about. TV dinners weren't failure, they were your childhood. Today's adults ironically embrace 90s foods as retro fun, but your generation actually lived on them. They've learned ironic consumption is safe because we decided sincerity was uncool, but you learned your truth mattered more than trends. This wasn't regression, it was integration. Picture this. Today, you're making dinner for your own family and you're tired from work. You could make something from scratch. You could also not. And you choose the easier option without guilt because you learned at 9 that convenience doesn't equal failure. This wasn't giving up. It was applying childhood lessons to adult life. You learned that perfectionism serves no one, that good enough is often good enough, that your value as a parent isn't measured in hours spent cooking, that the next generation needs to learn self-sufficiency too. Neuroscientists call this intergenerational transmission of pragmatic values, but for you, it's just being realistic. Here's what's remarkable. You're giving your kids what your parents gave you, the freedom from food martyrdom, the understanding that families function many ways. Kids today are being raised in an era of food anxiety where every choice is scrutinized and judged. They'll learn that eating is stressful because we decided it should be, but you're teaching them something different. This wasn't laziness, it was wisdom.
But some experiences cut deeper. Consider this. You're 9 years old, on a Thursday in 1976, and your mother has been crying in her bedroom all afternoon. You don't know why yet. You'll find out later it's because her mother, your grandmother, has died suddenly. But right now, you just know something is terribly wrong. You're hungry, you're scared. The house feels heavy with grief you don't understand. So you do the one thing you know how to do. You open the freezer, pull out a TV dinner, and make yourself dinner. You sit at the kitchen table alone, eating from the aluminum tray, and somehow the familiar compartments, the small victory of feeding yourself during your family's crisis, makes you feel less helpless. You couldn't fix your mother's pain, but you could take care of yourself. You could be one less thing she had to worry about today. This imprinted a profound truth. Self-sufficiency is the gift you give others during hard times. But that early independence existed alongside something darker, because learning to take care of yourself at 9 also meant you learned not to need people too much. You developed self-reliance that sometimes looked like emotional unavailability. That competence you built around feeding yourself generalized into not asking for help with anything. Those TV dinners taught you capability, yes, but they also taught you that adults might not always be available, so you'd better handle things yourself. This created people who hold both truths, proud independence and sometimes lonely self-sufficiency, capability earned young and the cost of learning to need nobody, resilience built through necessity and the walls that resilience sometimes builds. This complexity might be their most valuable inheritance. Let's return to that kitchen. You, 9 years old, aluminum tray in front of you, the satisfaction of having fed yourself, the quiet pride of being trusted with heat and time and your own hunger. These people carry something the modern world desperately needs. They remember when convenience wasn't shameful, when working parents weren't judged, when children were trusted with basic competence, when family time mattered more than homemade food. They're living proof that resilience is built, not born. Competence comes from practice, not protection. The best gift isn't perfection, but the trust that you can handle imperfection. Self-sufficiency learned young serves you forever. In a world of food anxiety, parenting judgment, and the pressure to do everything from scratch, they stand as evidence of another way. Not perfect, not without cost, but a way that produced people who can feed themselves without drama, adapt dinner to circumstances, reject food snobbery, and understand that love shows up in many forms, including frozen aluminum trays. They grew up eating Salisbury steak from divided compartments, cooking solo at 10, learning that convenience wasn't failure, but evolution, discovering that being trusted young builds confidence that lasts a lifetime. And somehow, they learned to hold it all, the pride of self-sufficiency, the memory without shame, the rejection of perfectionism, the understanding that good enough was always good enough. That wasn't just eating TV dinners, that was learning you were capable all along.
Picture this. You're 12 in 1979, and you're at the grocery store with your mother. She lets you pick 3 TV dinners for the week. You're standing in front of the freezer, weighing your options. Fried chicken, Salisbury steak, turkey, meatloaf, fish sticks. 8 choices total. This wasn't abundance. It was learning to choose within constraints. You learn that freedom exists inside boundaries, that limited options reduce decision paralysis, that curation happens upstream, that someone else has already narrowed the field. Psychologists call this building decision-making competence through bounded choice architecture. But for you, it was just picking dinner. Here's what's remarkable. You were practicing agency within predetermined limits. You couldn't choose pizza, you couldn't choose sushi, but within the TV dinner universe, you were sovereign. Kids today face grocery stores with 40,000 products, infinite cuisine types, global ingredients. They've learned choice should be unlimited because we decided restriction was oppressive. But you learned creativity happens inside boundaries. This wasn't limitation, it was focus.